Joe's Astrology. This is the Synastry chart reading for Tom Holland on the right and Zendaya on the left. Now, she's a sun in Virgo and he's a sun in Gemini. And we don't have the birth time for him, but both having the sun in Virgo and the sun in Gemini, both of those signs ruled by Mercury. So very much a couple here that is going to be very cerebral and thinking. The two signs, Gemini and Virgo, are in a square aspect. However, they are both ruled by Mercury. So I would say there, right off the bat here, there is some compatibility that we would have to look at there. And then just having an aspect between those two suns is better than no aspect for sure. His moon is in the Sagittarius, and her moon is in Taurus. Well, we think his moon is in Sagittarius. It might be in Scorpio. We don't have the time, but it is there near Pluto. So we will come back to that. They were both born around the same time, so the chart is very similar in that they both have a similar Pluto, Sagittarius. Or Pluto's in the 10th. They both have Jupiter and Capricorn retrograde, Neptune and Uranus retrograde. They both have the same nodes in Libra and Aries, and that Saturn conjunct the south node where they're coming from. His Saturn is not retrograde. Hers is retrograde, so we do have to consider that she's a person who is really, with that Saturn retrograde, going to exhibit some traits of Uranus. We also see with her that she has Uranus ruling her chart. We could say that Saturn, which is retrograde, with the rising there being in Aquarius. And we can look in his chart just to see if he has any Uranian aspects. Of course, Uranus is in Aquarius, and it is making a sextile to the moon. And a sextile to the Saturn. So not much there without the houses. We can't really see much more if he has that on an angle. Now the Mars and Venus. She has Mars and Venus in a balsamic aspect, and his is in a new phase. So very, very different. Hers is in the same sign. His is in different signs. His Venus, his Mars is making a sextile to her Venus, and her Mars is making a semi-sextile to his Venus. So if anyone out there is into looking at Mars-Venus aspects, they are both of them are making an aspect to the opposing person's Mars-Venus. So that is interesting for compatibility. Now his Venus is in Gemini. And again, we come back to her. She has that sun in Virgo, that ruler Mercury. She's Mercury conjunct the North Node. So we're thinking of Venus in that decan of Aquarius and Gemini, that this guy's love nature would have to have something to do with air signs and Mercury. And here he's with a woman who has Mercury conjunct the North Node where she's headed. That's gonna make Mercury stand out in her life. I'm not gonna get into what that means in this reading. She also has a moon in the 3rd house. Gemini house, and the moon being a very personal part of the chart, a very important part of the chart. And we can see in her chart, she has this Venus conjunct Mars in Cancer. And without looking at that, we can, because we have the houses, we can look at her seventh house, because he doesn't really have any Cancer. There are some aspects to the moon. I'm going to pass over that, and let's take a look at her seventh house. It's ruled by the sun, and the sun is in the seventh house of her chart, and it's in Virgo. So we do have a person here who's an actor, so his sun is probably strong. It could be in an angle, we don't know. It is making a trine to the nodes. It is loosely conjunct Venus, but we know he's got to be somewhat of a Leo, have a Leo persona, just by being an actor. There's got to be some element of that. So we do see that in his chart. You could say that this sun is in the 8th house by whole sign. So potentially a Plutonian person, and he does have the moon conjunct Pluto. So definitely going to have some elements of Pluto in his personality. And with that sun being in Virgo, we could say another Mercury person as well. And he does have Mercury conjunct Mars at 20 degrees there, 20 and 21 degrees. So Mercury is also making a trine to Jupiter. It's moving to an opposition to Pluto. And it's an aspect to the nodes, as well as Neptune there too. So there's a lot of aspects to Mercury. Her being a Pluto person herself, certainly with Pluto on an angle there on the midheaven in the 10th house. And again, him having Pluto moon, there's certainly some compatibility there. And they both have Jupiter squaring the nodes. Because as I said, they're born at very close time together. So whatever that means in their life, that Jupiter squaring the nodes, really looking at this resolution node, the north node ruled by Venus. That there's going to be some importance there. Without knowing them, I don't know what that is. Maybe some of you know this couple a little better. You can make a comment on that. We're talking about beliefs. We're talking about traveling, higher learning. It's in Capricorn. It's in that angle of Capricorn Cancer. So could be talking about family issues, parenting, etc. But overall, I'd say, certainly two people being born around the same time. This is certainly somewhat of a compatible chart. I can see why these two would be together for sure. So that being said, if you have anything to add, please feel free to add it in the comments. And I hope you enjoy this mini Synastry reading between Zendaya and Tom Holland.